This is channel 253. Beep, boop, boop, boop.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain Podcast.
We opened up in October, and that following October, November, Ezra and those guys voted me Oregon Brewer of the Year, and kind of that kind of got the ball really rolling. Yeah. You know, that and GABF, because Portland loves winners, and they love to be able to call their own winners. So it's, and I love that too, because it's a competitive market.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. All you guys. Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast. Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, coming to you guys from the Historic Parkway Tavern in Tacoma, Washington. My name is Matt McLaren. I'm here, as always, with Ron Swerner.
Hello, Matt.
How's it going?
Good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah,
a little tired.
Well, the tournament of beer, it's a lot. It's almost over. Saturday's the championship party.
Sweet.
So.
Yeah, we're going to recap all that shit next week.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
11 seed.
Yeah.
11 seed.
Wasn't me.
Sorry.
Yeah, and then Sean is not baseballing tonight, but he's working tonight, so he is not on the mic. But he'll be back in a couple of weeks, he said. Right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Our guest today is somebody that we're super stoked to talk about and talk to, just because he's done a shitload in the beer world in Washington and the Northwest. And this motherfucker has more medals than most people hanging in their brewery. Our guest today is Mike from Grains of Wrath Brewing.
Hey.
What's up, dude?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
We've only been talking about this for a year, so it's kind of nice to get it done.
Yeah. Exactly.
I know. That's how we felt when we started. Thanks for rolling up, man. It's a long drive, dude. So, what are you drinking, man?
I'm drinking. It's the Old Schoolhouse Double IPA that's on. You're gonna have me name it? I can't.
Century Club.
Century Club. Yeah. Kyle and his crew are killing it up there. So.
Dude, seriously, hoppy beers especially.
And just a pint of Double IPA. Just go for it.
That's like still drinkable and super heavy.
Yeah, it's not heavy at all. So that's
leave it to Old Schoolhouse.
Man. Yeah, agreed.
Ron, what do you have, man?
I got the Louis Dunkel. It's delish.
Good. And then I'm drinking Mike's beer.
So I also have that. It's right here.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about this real quick?
Keef Master? Yeah, it's just an IPA that we release every year on 420. Try to make it as dank as possible, even though because we use I think the fanciest hop we have in that is Mosaic. Otherwise, it's Columbus, Cryo, and Summit. Because it's picked at the very end of we wanted just a stink, and these are actually a little more refined than we were hoping, but yeah, we wanted it to kind of taste like Burning Man, just weed and BO, underlying sadness,
fucking patchouli, I know. When you're like, it came out more
hints of why am I here?
Yeah. Now I get it.
Yeah, it's like a high class juggalo.
Oh, new beer name, I call it.
Oh, we've been working on it.
Oh, damn it.
You have great beer names.
I know. We were just talking about your fucking beer names.
Yeah, they're outstanding.
I owe most of that to Owen Lamb, my number 2. He's he's twisted.
So, Mike, you grew up just north of Chicago.
Correct.
And around your freshman year in high school, you had to blaze to Texas because your dad got a different job, or his job took him there. And then you came back in 2 years for your senior year. Is that right?
Senior year, yeah. Came back from Texas.
And you're, of course, a Cubs fan.
Yep.
And then you're in college and you're taking chemistry classes, and you're drinking Sierra Pale and Sam Smith Taddy and the...
you are the Nardwuar.
Seriously. The Three Floyds, the Alpha King.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so you put the business suit on after you graduate, and you're not digging it.
No.
So you regroup and you drive a truck for 2 years. What were you listening to on the road?
Well, if you know the middle America, there's not a whole lot except for Bible thumping and country music. Yeah. So it was a lot of just CDs. Those who remember CDs. Yeah. So and I was one of the first people I had to pay. Like I paid out of the nose to get some satellite radio just to not listen to he's coming and you're going to hell. So it was tough, but metal, punk. I kind of grew up in that era. Everything from like when I was a kid. My first concert when I was 11, my cousins took me to go see Ted Nugent.
Sick.
So yeah, right. It's a good first concert.
Yeah.
But like Dio and all that when you're growing, when I'm young.
Dio,
I was 12, 13. I was like Little League listening to Dio, and then progressed as it went there.
Nice.
So,
yeah,
it's fun.
You're known for that. And
yeah, driving over the road, that's pretty funny.
Certainly in your tap room too.
Yeah. We try.
Yeah.
It's a little calmed down in Camas, but if you go to the Portland spot, it's a little more my style.
It's pretty metal in there.
Yeah.
Yep. We just went down to hang out like with our sales team, and
That's right.
Great fucking vibe.
Thanks.
In the Portland spot.
I like that spot. It's a little more my style. I mean, it's not a restaurant. It's more of a bar, 21 and over, that kind of thing. So,
dude, it's like divey vibes, but it's like, it's great. It's like, feels very homey almost. It's like,
for sure.
With a nice bourbon collection. So
I know.
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
It's kind of the jam.
You guys are fucking.
You just have to look past the medals and you can see it.
Have you got enough of that yet?
No, I mean, I'm blessed, that way. I have a great brewing crew. We're pretty proud of what we're doing.
So I mean, you have a chemistry degree, so
yeah.
I mean, you must have killed it at homebrewing.
I got into it just because I never did anything with it. Chemical engineering is specific, and I never did anything with it. So it was kind of my nerd outlet. Just homebrewing kind of fell right into that, where I could focus on something, that was a little more intense as far as like what I things I enjoy. So homebrewed for about 8 years. Yeah.
Before doing anything like professionally, you're saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
About 8 years.
Were you just a fucking metal hall homebrewer too?
I never entered anything.
Oh really?
Never entered anything. It wasn't about that. It was really about like just making beer to have at home, have beer on so everyone comes over and hangs out every day after work and drinks beer.
Word?
Yeah. And then trying to get better, just being a dork.
So where did the competitive shift happen then?
Oh, when I was born.
That's what I'm saying.
I grew up in sports, and so very, my dad was a Marine drill instructor after Vietnam, so it's a kind of an intense household of work.
Sure.
Be better. Whatever you're doing, just go and just. And it's just, and again, that is just kind of a focus, when you get into beer, and as we all know, beer can start becoming very, it can take your life over, as we all know.
You don't say.
So, so there was a lot of fun doing that, and trying different beers, and, Samuel Smith's Tatty Porter, and, the first hoppy beer, Sierra Nevada Pale, that's my island beer. That's the first time I ever, tasted hops, really tasted hops. And you're like, wow, what is this?
Dude.
So, and then, living in Chicago, Three Floyds came not long after that. And Alpha King was the jam.
Never been.
Yeah. Those are old friends, so it's kind of nice, and known them for a long time. So kind of influential also on like, oh, you can actually like be cool with metal, listening to music and be that part of your program and who you are. So yeah, super fun.
Nice.
Enjoyed it.
It's actually funny because there's there's so many breweries that fold that that culture into their branding almost.
Oh, it's really nice actually.
It fits in so perfectly at so many places.
Yeah.
Like we've had Colin on and the guys at True, like those guys are
Zach's awesome. We've collabed a couple times already.
They fold it in so it's funny how like cohesive these two worlds are.
Yeah, I agree.
So for you to like just organically
the cats
adopt both of them,
at Ghost Town in Oakland just slay it. And they're legit.
I hear True in Denver too.
Oh yeah, True's awesome. Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
is that-
That was
okay,
that was
sorry.
one of the first big ones I knew
listening, man.
outside of Floyd's.
Damn it. So it's 2000.
Yeah.
2008.
Change the subject.
Yeah, True. But yeah, as far as like we made a beer recently with the guys at Ghost Town, and like they're legit. I want to get down there and make some beers. It's just a matter of time with everything going on. So,
Dude.
So let's talk about Virginia Beach and heading down there and your first professional job.
it's an interesting story.
Yeah, it is.
It's a long-winded, but
Yeah.
you want to hear it?
Yeah, I
You guys
do.
have-
All right. So 2008, 2009 were very good, and everything kind of, the job market crashed, and me and my now ex-wife were kind of like panicking. We'd both been out of work for a few months, and so did everyone around us. And like, all right, what are we going to do? My parents had just moved to Virginia Beach about 2 years before. They liked it, and they said, hey, come on down and, reboot, see what's going on. Okay, not super thrilled, but somewhere just to start over. So went down there, and I was just started a job, to some local, driving job, trying to figure it out. And I walked into a brewery that had been open for about 3 months, and sat down, and he poured a flight for me, and it was not good.
Yeah.
And and being from Chicago, he's like, what do you think? I'm like, this is a real trick question. I'm not here to, grip you. And he's like, hey, what do you think? I'm like, this is really bad homebrew on a large scale. The exact words. I said, this on the side of my glass, that's yeast running down the side of my glass. I'm like, is every mash temp the same? And, it's the only difference between these beers is color. You ask,
Makes a pretty flight.
and he got all bristly, and I'm like, listen, you asked,
I even gave you a warning shot, man.
I'm not here to like rub your shoulders and tell you everything's gonna be, all right. And so he got mad, and he's like, well, do you think you can do better? I'm like, well, sure, shit can't do worse. So he actually said to me, he goes, hey, I want you to, he goes, well, then why don't you come in 3 weeks from Saturday? I have an opening here on a tank, and, come brew. I was like, well, okay, yeah, sounds great. So I went in the back and looked at his malt that he has, and Jesus, and like the hops that he had. And, and I'm trying to figure it out, right? I hadn't even picked up a tri-clamp before. So I had become friends with the master brewer. I will say master brewer, because I use that word with reverence. Alan Young, who was the master brewer and kind of the head of the West Coast division of Gordon Biersch. Wow,
Yeah.
he knows better than I do. So I said, hey, Alan, can I, can you help me a little bit? He goes, sure. He goes, I can't pay you, but if you want to come in, I'll teach you everything you can know. And I went home and told my ex, and she said, quit your job. You want to do this? Quit your job. So I did. I went in the next day and just quit.
Dang.
And so I spent the next 3 weeks every day working for Alan, and learned what little I could in 3 weeks, but it was a lot more than I knew.
Sure.
So I brewed that beer, and it is and when it came out, there's nothing I would ever put on tap now, but it was leaps and bounds better than what he had on. And so he's, kind of looked at me. He's like, "Oh, you want to be the brewer?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And he wasn't paying me at all, really. The first 6 months were free.
Jesus, man.
I wanted my foot in the door. That's I wanted in.
Yeah.
So I went back to Alan and I said, "Hey, I'm going to start working over here now." And he's like, "Anytime you want to come in, I'll, 100%. You're more than welcome to come work. I just can't pay you."
What a fucking resource,
So
man.
for 2 years I worked at this place, and every weekend I was at Gordon Biersch.
Damn.
Every weekend I could.
Yeah.
Was at least there for a few hours, and trying to absorb as much as I could. And the beer got better.
Sure.
Again, probably nothing I would serve now. Mm-hmm. Nothing I would serve now. But it was such an education.
Totally.
So when things went person that owned that brewery wasn't a very good character. So me and the other brewer got kind of, we got screwed. And so that's when I had met Matt Cole a couple years before when I first moved to Virginia Beach. And it was their first year at the Great Taste in the Midwest with Fatheads.
Yeah.
And so I called up Matt and I said, hey, man, I was panicking. I'm like, I'm going to fall out of the industry. I just worked my way somewhat into it because Virginia was still pretty fledgling as far as craft beer went. And he's like, yeah, wait, you'd moved to Cleveland? And I'm like, yeah, I want to come learn from you. You make some of the best IPAs in the country at that time. Not at that time, sorry.
No, you're fine.
But, and lager and all. And I said, yeah, I'd move to Cleveland. I hated Virginia Beach. It's just, it's just like Chicago. It's hot and humid, but like it's so transient because of the Navy. Like there's nothing. It's all chain restaurants and all. There's no real like soul to the place.
Yeah.
And so getting out of there was great. And going back to Cleveland, it's like little Chicago. I can eat pierogi again, and like there's all the foods that I love. And like the
I don't see a single Red Robin anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. White Castle. Give myself diarrhea anytime I want. So he was like, he almost kind of trying to talk me out of it. Not literally, but like he's like, you come to Cleveland. He goes, listen, we just opened the production facility. I really don't have any spot for you. He goes, I have a bottling line. I have a Maheen. I go, I know. And he's like, he says, you're gonna come walk off the brewery. Hadn't told him about the whole situation, and I said, I want to come work for you, which I really did. I desperately wanted to work and learn, and because people were throwing money like, hey, let's just open a brewery. And I didn't like where I was at professionally. I wanted to go learn, really learn, and so he said, all right, well, let me talk to my production manager about fitting you in here, and then we'll move you into the cellar as soon as we can, and on the brew house. I said, that's all I ask. So I drove the very next morning. I drove 9 hours up there, but on my way, Alan Young calls me up and says, hey, by the way, their production manager, I hired him at Gordon Biersch years ago.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, oh, okay, pull every string you got.
Yeah.
So I sat down in front of Chris Altmont, who is one of the best people I've ever met in the industry as far as just smart, 5-tool guy, top to bottom. And I sat down, and he's like, I'll be right with you. And he was just finishing up an email he was doing. And I said, I hear we have a mutual friend. He's like, who's that? And he's still typing away, not even looking at me. And I said, Alan Young. He stops, and he looks at me, and he closes his computer, and he's like, how the fuck do you know Alan Young? And I was like, well, I've been working at this brewery for the last couple of years, and every weekend I've been, working over there. He goes, Alan Young lets you touch his equipment, like work on his equipment. And I was like, yeah, no, I got a dirty mind. And he goes, I'm like, yeah, he goes, you're hired. And I was like, Chris, dude, I just drove 9 hours. I could have done this on the phone, And he's like, no. He goes, we'll sit down and talk. He goes, but if you know Alan, you're good. So,
Jesus.
And they hired me that day. It was 12/12/2012.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's the mine apocalypse apparently, and it was kind of a gigantic career shift for me. So
Totally.
I moved up there before the first of the year, and started working on a Maheen, working on a bottling line, just to get my foot in the door at Fatheads.
Yeah.
And true to their word, 3 months in, of that. That's a whole different experience. If people have worked on a Maheen together, you have stories. You're kindred. Those things are just garbage. But
every brewer who's paid
every brewer. I've always promised myself if I ever met Dave Maheen, I would just punch him one and be like, "That's for everybody.
That's for everything.
Oh yeah,
everything.
We even named it. It's, the name of the bottling line was Clarice. Because it was just one of those like, it was unreal.
Damn it.
No, but they stuck to their word, and I was in the cellar and on the brew house within the first 3 or so months, and really threw myself into it, and You want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So a year and a half into it,
This is the nerdy shit we're here for, just so you know.
I loved working for Fatheads. It was a family. Even as getting bigger, like we were all tight. We were about a mission to be the best beer, like much less Ohio, everywhere.
Nice.
That was really cool environment. And so I know that so when they were talking about franchising out here, Matt had interviewed one other person, Arnie at Marin Brewing, and he turned it down. And I call up every time I run into Arnie. I thank him every year. I do. So Matt was like, kind of despondent and walking back and forth in the brewery. And he's like, man, I don't know what to do. I go, what's up? He was like, well, we're doing that thing in Portland, and I don't know who to get to brew. And I was like, me? And he's like, you just moved here a year and a half ago. And I go, well, who better to know Fatheads beer than me, as far as anyone who would be willing to pick up and move again? I didn't have any roots there. I loved it there. I would have 100% put roots down there had I not gotten the gig out here.
Sure.
And so he gave me that opportunity, and he's like, hey, I'm going to have them come out. And this is, Tom Cook and his folks who now own Von Ebert, same people.
Yeah.
They came out, and it was the wrong time. They caught me on a 12-hour shift starting at 4 a.m, and I got off at 4, and I'm sitting on a picnic bench. And this is something, I was Lenny from, George and Lenny. I wanted that goddamn job so bad. I squeezed the life out of it. I never had an interview so bad. It was. I got up and apologized. I literally got up and shook everyone's hand and said, "I'm really sorry. I have no idea what just happened." No, it was that bad. It was that bad. Matt Cole was late getting in on his plane, so he shows up at the very end. And he's just like, "What is happening?" And I was like, "I don't know. I mean, I can usually sit down and work a room, just talk to people." It was the worst. And so they said, well, we're going to keep looking. Oh, they did. A couple days later, they were honest with me, and because I walked away and I walked up to Owen Lamb, who's my number 2 here. We were working together there.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And he was going for the cellar position out there, and he, is Owen, so he just nailed it. And I walked out of my interview, and I'm like, I just lost it. I mean, I just lost the brass ring. And my real opportunity to be a brewer personally outside of shift brewing. And so apparently not a lot of the interviews went all that well elsewhere. And Matt stood up for me. He's like, this is my guy. This is my guy. I want you to fly him out to Portland. I want you to buy him a $100 steak, sit down, drink some wine, drink some bourbon, and get to know him.
Yeah.
So I did. Sorry, I almost hiccuped. So I did. And they flew me out. And, I was walking into Apex the next day, and they offered me the job as I was walking into Apex.
Dang.
So it's pretty legit. It was awesome. And so, that's how I got out to Portland. Pretty interesting.
Fucking roller coaster.
Right. Sorry, it's a long-winded story, but it's
That's all crazy,
But
man.
it gets better. Tell about your first night there.
Which part?
When you met Ben and...
Oh, it was ridiculous. So they had I moved out, I hadn't even moved out here yet. I was out here for a month or two later to look for a place to live. And then, Matt came with me, and they had, at the White Owl, they had put on the Masters of IPA, kind of a little IPA festival. It grew into much bigger, but it was small. So I'm sitting there, and we're hanging out, and we went back over to Imperial Bottle Shop, and people are like, can we get a picture of all you guys? And I'm looking, and I'm standing there, and it's me, and it's Matt Cole, it's Mitch Steele, Tyler Brown, and Ben Edmonds. And I'm like, one of these things is not like the others. I'm just kind of like this new guy, right? Just kind of like sliding in. And so that was that was the first night I was here, and I got to meet all those guys. And Tyler Brown, as Tyler Brown is one of the greatest guys in the biz. When I got back to Cleveland, he had already sent a package with beer and Barley Brown's gear saying, "Welcome to Oregon."
Oh, that's awesome.
It's legit.
What a
He's a great guy.
sweetheart.
I love that guy, man. He's like one of the godfathers of Oregon beer.
Pallet Jack.
Oh,
Dude.
Love that beer.
Turmoil, which is one of the, I think is one of the most quintessential style-changing beers, with black IPA or CDA. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
In America,
Yeah.
Oh, man. They were a super early three-way, too. They were like 2013 or 14.
What's that?
Barley Browns.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking like way early. Like they were just that. Because like that was a time where they were picking up like the breweries that were really impactful, right? And like now every early three-way brewery is just a fucking behemoth of a beer brand.
Right.
And man, those guys were way early to the table because of that shit, because they were like redefining styles.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And also just one of the best people in the biz.
So the Portland beer industry welcomed you.
Oh, the brewers were awesome. Writers, not so much. But like, oh my God, since become friends with Ezra. Ezra.
Shout out to Ezra.
Oh,
I love that motherfucker.
Now I look back and I love how protective they were. Martin Sismar, he kind of led the charge against us. What does Ohio know about beer? Even though he's from Toledo. Right? But, what does Ohio know about beer? Who do they think they are? And those are the articles before I moved here.
Dang, dude.
Well, I'll say this. You know what? After we opened up and things got rolling, Ezra was the first one to be like, you know what? We were wrong. You gotta come in and try the beer. Is the branding our style? No, it's kitschy and it sucks.
Yeah.
But the food was good. Portland's the only place I can imagine and people complained about the proportions being too big, which is right. But the portions, not proportions. Yeah, but it was really weird. But we opened up and literally I think we opened up in October, and that following October, November. Ezra and those guys voted me Oregon Brewer of the Year, and kind of that kind of got the ball really rolling. That and GABF, because Portland loves winners, and they love to be able to call their own winners. So it's and I love that too, because it's a competitive market.
I respect that you referred to all of that press as protective of their own beer scene.
Well, it was,
because it is in a sense,
They
but it's
probably
like
looked at you as a franchise.
Oh, they did. You're a franchise. I said, we're the only one besides the original spot, so we're kind of a link. We're not a chain,
Yeah.
We're one satellite spot. But whatever. It got me out here, and I was like, this is kind of my chance to make my mark.
Yeah. In a really competitive market.
Yeah, and shout out to, Tom Cook. TS really backed me up and said, do your thing. He supported me on, coming from the background in which he did, which is pretty corporate. He was like, he bought in on. I'm like, dude, you hired me for a reason, dude. Let me do it. Let me just do this thing. Let me go out and be the face. Let me go out and say hi to people. I wasn't here to sell people beer, but I went to beer bars just to get to know me before you start looking at that brand. Right. And so it rolled that way, and luckily, and the beer was accepted, really well. And
nice.
GABF hit, and 9 months into that, we won a gold medal at GABF, and so that kind of gave us a lot more legitimacy. We won, and then the mothership just rolled. Mm-hmm. It was 5 gold medals and a silver.
Yeah, that's insane.
At GABF, and it did it 2 years in a row, or 4 golds and a silver. We did 10 medals in 2 years.
GABF
it was
for a single brewery.
Hop Juju won 2 gold medals and a bronze in 3 years as far as double IPA and American double IPA, and a gold at World Beer Cup. Yeah. So and that's not my beer. That's Matt's. Just want to make that very clear. But just that. People starting to go, oh, these guys are all right.
And the local alt press, the Willamette Week, held that IPA competition.
Oh yeah.
And you freaking won it.
Yeah, they had 80 or 85 or 90 IPAs in Portland that were being made, and we won first and second place.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Well, one was super. Yeah, it was nice. It was one of those things, again, just kind of reaffirming that we belong here, you know, and it was nice. And it really started, that's where my own, like, you know, reputation started taking off.
I love the fact that like it's a funny kind of like flow chart of like somebody's sort of journey in any sort of like creative business. So like there's, you know, people compare chefs and brewers a lot, mostly when we're like complaining about y'all, but like there's like this funny sort of like congruency between like the journey that like really refined top chefs kind of take, and then like really refined like skilled brewers take. And it's like, you know, get the job at this place and work in the, you know, at this restaurant for the week, right? And then volunteer your time at like the other crazy restaurant as a fucking dishwasher if you need to, you know, for however long it takes you to kind of get your feet wet. And then, you know, you paid your dues on the bottling line, which is a step down in a sense from your previous position, but you knew that like you wanted to be at Fatheads because their quality was just this crazy, right?
I wanted to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
You're there to learn. So you're paying your dues in a lot of ways. And like you're also absorbing information from other breweries that you know are well known for their quality. And like you and I have talked about this, but like what do you feel like people lose when they abandon the idea that they should kind of pay their dues and absorb information from other skilled brewers if they're going to like try to be successful in this business?
That's a good question. Paying dues is real.
Yeah.
You know, being, whether you're in a dish pit, talking about kitchen, dish pit, you're on the line sweating it out and doing that. I mean, I think there's an appreciation you get from ground up. You know, you just walk into this business and say, I'm a master brewer. I don't know who you are. You know, I mean, there's only a handful of people I would call in the Pacific Northwest. You know, so I think it's really about, it's learning the process, man. I mean, it's you know, and as long as you have people, and that's one thing I take very seriously. You know, I'd like to take, you know, I hope I take seriously enough is training my people how to do the process. You know, Owen Lamb runs that cellar. That guy is a machine, and he worked at, you know, Fatheads, he worked at Breakside. So he kind of took those two different
Heinous resume, dude.
Yeah, heinous. You know, and you know, he and I have been working together for 10 years. You know, so I don't trust anyone in this business more than I trust that guy.
Yeah.
He's money. So it's one of those, like, he trains all that side, and mine is going to be with some of our newer guys, teaching them about recipe development. You know, like, not, you know, this isn't about me versus you. This is like, I want you to be good. You're working your ass off for me. I'm going to teach you everything I know. You know, and it's sometimes it's about ground up. You know, how do you develop a recipe? You know, it sounds so simple, but, you know, choosing your right ingredients. You're talking about kitchens. I mean, it's a very close, you know, close comparison.
There's a lot of parallels.
Yeah, I mean, you can throw Pilsner malt, but what Pilsner malt?
Yeah.
You can throw Munich malt. Who's Munich malt? I mean, it makes a difference. I think that, and the styles that we choose and the beers that we make at Fatheads. At first, I wanted to separate myself from that. You know, all of my, you know, because they still use some. It's kind of there is very different between West Coast style from the East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast. Even the Pacific Northwest had their own.
Yep.
But I was more influenced by San Diego, 100%. You know, old Alpine Brewing.
We've gushed about that a lot.
Pat McElhenney, the Pizza Port crew, all those guys who made just lean malt. Let the hops just bang. You know, that's where I was really first time I ever opened up a bottle of Duet. I was like, fuck me, what is this?
What a beer memory that is.
And sorry about the language, but
You're fine.
it literally
Clearly haven't listened to a lot of this, have you, Mike?
We opened it, we poured it in here, and I poured it in the glass, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, it was so different than anything.
Yep.
It was explosive.
Yep.
And you know, that had shipped from California to Virginia Beach.
Yep.
And I was like, this is insane. Like, you know, because Fatheads had some color to it, you know, and amazing beers, amazing IPAs, and you know, his resume speaks for itself. But like, you know, Pilsner looking, and I'm like, this is you know where it's at for me. So that's when I started Tom never said I had to make Fatheads beers. I made a few that were known and, proven recipes. But other than that, 80% of that board, he said, that's all you. You do what you want.
Yeah,
so that's where I started. That's, like I said, all the love to that guy, man. He really backed me up. And just kind of rolled that way and experimenting and trying this and that and not really telling me no, without, as long as I can make sense to him, business-wise, I can, do whatever the hell I wanted. So I did.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
We're going to... Yeah, fuck, that's awesome. Yeah, we're going to take a super quick break. But hang out. We'll be right back.
Cool.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. As always, a quick shout-out to Doug Mackey, our wonderful producer. Who makes us sound fucking awesome every week. And I know you guys heard the info on the break, but please do follow and support Channel 253. It's fantastic, and it's a great way to stay connected to Tacoma. So yeah, do not hesitate to go and support those guys immediately. And then if you haven't yet, please click like and follow on our stuff as well. It actually does help. We have some plans to kind of, help enrich Tacoma's beer scene with the podcast a little bit now that things are starting to take off a bit. So the better the numbers, the better for us, and the better for Tacoma. So yeah, follow, review, all of that stuff. It really does help. We all got poured a new beer during the break. We were gushing about Baltic Porter.
What a handsome bartender too.
I know. Sean brought us beer because he has to cover behind the bar tonight.
This is awesome.
Yeah, man. It's a Holy Mountains barrel fermented Baltic Porter, which is just fucking insane.
No surprises there, though.
I know, yeah. So I have kind of like a weird, maybe abstract question. So you use a lot of language that I kind of use a lot when I'm talking, especially to brewers, in terms of things like refinement, things like composition, things like recipe development. They're kind of abstract ideas to a lot of people, and I don't think there's a lot of focus put on them when people are when people are considering how they can like make their beer better, right? Like, how have you applied those ideas going from Fatheads to like now Grains of Wrath, where like you have won a ton of medals, and I would consider your beer very refined, in my own opinion. But you guys are also just popular in general. How have you applied those ideas to your work now?
The strive for consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, consistency, and a beer can win something at a prestigious event, and I can still tell you 5 things I don't like about it.
Okay.
The minute I think that beer is perfect, I'm done as a brewer. Like literally, strive that beer is never going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Ever. You can hit certain things where that beer is that beer, but we still got to make that. This is okay. What was wrong with this one?
Yeah.
Even though couldn't most 99.9% of people tell? No.
Right.
No. But like, I can tell. Owen can tell. Joe and Brandon, my other 2 brewers, can tell.
Yeah. Even if everybody's like, this is fucking amazing, and I love this, and we're selling out of it, there's always something to refine.
Yeah, you're always chasing it, right?
You should be.
Chase the perfect beer. You're never going to make it. So I think that's one of the best parts of this is like, this beer is awesome. Like, I love this beer. All right, but there's like, this is the 2 nuanced things that are missing. It's all, once you get to a certain point, it's nuance, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, fermentation flaw. It's not, development. It's like, okay, what could be better?
Yeah.
2 degrees more in mash temp, 2 degrees less.
Yeah.
Where's the right landing point for gravity on starting and finishing? These things that we sometimes overlook, that make the world a difference. I mean, Hellas hitting, 2.2 versus like 1.9, world difference.
Yeah.
It's an entirely different beer, too dry. You got to hit that 2.2 to 2.4 mark is like, that's where it's pretty.
Classic.
That's
like
where that beer
almost
is
grainy
what it's supposed to be. Yeah,
Fuck,
just have that little bit of honey malt kind of character to it. All right, well, are we keeping our eye on just even middle fruit? Like, what are the alphas on this?
Yep.
3/10 of an alpha, you have to make adjustments. Now, I don't do that for IPA. No, sorry, disappoint people. I mean,
you fucking turds are gonna buy it anyway.
No, that's not the mentality. It's like people's the oldest question is how many IBUs, and I'm like, I don't even know. And I bet
also, why does that matter?
And
to
I would
you?
actually say, I would say to most people, you couldn't tell between a 52 and a 75. I bet.
Yep.
Because malt content, alcohol content, all these variations, you couldn't tell. I'm glad we're past the whole IBUs is hoppiness.
Yeah. The IBU war.
How many BUs does that have? I don't even list
2017.
anything.
Exactly.
But like for refined, delicate beers like lager and certain things like that, then you calculate those little small nuances.
Yeah.
Like I said, IPA is just kind of a grip it and rip it.
I still consider your IPAs to be like very well refined. You guys clearly aim at things that are like, you. This is where like the idea of composition comes up, which I talk a lot about because it ends up being a conversation point, especially with a lot of the breweries that I work with. But like it's something that I think consumers, like people who are just sitting there drinking beer, even if they don't know a ton about beer or they don't think they know a ton, they can probably still tell the difference between a beer that is well composed and a beer that is like maybe muddy and like not as well structured, right? Like,
right, sure.
Yeah, for sure. So like aiming for things like refinement and composition end up being like an important decision to make as a brewer if the idea is trying to be chosen or repurchased more, on the consumer side. And so like that's where things like composition come up, is like in your guys' IPAs, you can say that they're just like, we just bully them with hops and whatever, but you're clearly like looking at the hop, the actual profile of the hop. You're kind of making your CO2 sort of expression match that a little bit. If it's sharp, you're dialing it up. If it's kind of like ripe, you're 100%. Dialing it down. Like, right. You're being modest about it, but it's clear that that's obviously a concern.
For sure. I mean, and then every year, we're lucky enough to be able to select hops, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, talk about chef. If you can have that tomato every time, or that whatever ingredient every time.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to have, but every year it changes. Because you're going to talk about, this is wherever you select your Citra from, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same hill, not the same water content that year, rain that year, not anything.
Yep.
So you're going to find those now that they've changed kilning temps so low that you have all this enzymatic activity. Back then, we just thought it was called it hop butter. Like, what is going on with this? Seriously, we thought we thought it was hop butter, and it was diacetyl. But they, hadn't really caught on. They were lowering kilning temps to create to leave more of the actual all the essential oils behind.
Yep.
But at the same time, you're also not denaturing any of these enzymes. So we're seeing we weren't keeping track of pre and post fermentation on gravity.
Yeah.
Now 100% we are.
Just
every year as the new crop comes in, who's going to be the culprits? Who are the culprits this year?
Right.
Like last year it was Simcoe and Citra.
Yep.
Well, this year it might be Mosaic and something else. So you actually have to adjust your mash temperatures so you can either end higher or lower before dry hop, so you can hit that perfect mark that you want. So it's like this whole that's the part I love about this, because like every time of year,
many layers.
At first, we're sure, right?
Totally.
But at the same time, I want like built for speed. I want that beer to land between 2 and 2.2 post dry hop. And we were seeing some of these things drift way past that.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, so this is the Simcoes this year. Because I'm seeing it in this beer and that.
Because you have
those
extra
ones
enzyme
that
activity in those. Yeah,
for sure. And
for people listening, I'm just because I feel like we're using a lot of nerd words. So when you're processing hops, you're drying them out to preserve them. So you kiln them at certain temperatures. And if you kiln them at higher temperatures, all of the really volatile aromatic compounds dissipate, basically. So what we're talking about is lowering temperatures to preserve the hops. And when you lower the temperatures, you are preserving more of those volatile aromatic compounds, but you are not denaturing enzymes, which would be denatured at higher kilning temperatures. And that enzyme activity can actually affect the processes in which you're brewing. So that's what we're saying. So you depending on like where you get your hops and at what temperature they're kilned at, you can actually be required to change your recipe if your consistency is what you're aiming for.
Well put.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah. Sorry, I probably should explain that, but yeah, it's, but it is.
They all get it. They all get it now.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Nerd word.
All right. For those who just blanked out for a minute, we're back.
Yeah, I know. Including me.
You can just tell people just started spacing out.
Towel off.
But no, yes. 100%. And that's what keeps this fresh and fun. Is
those changes
every year? Yeah, because sometimes monotony can kind of like become a real thing. And so it's every year it's the best part.
It's awesome.
Selection is the best part of the year.
Yeah.
It's my Christmas. That's my Christmas.
Dude.
Between harvest and then selecting the ingredients you're going to be using is imperative.
Yep.
Imperative. Because, if you're buying spot, you're not getting the same lot every time.
Yeah.
So, if I know what I'm going to get out of that Simcoe, and we were lucky enough.
Everything.
Yeah,
and
you used to have like a pretty sizable number to select. But, YCH started a program where they were grouping us together. I was part of the beta program when it was us. It was Cloudburst, Holy Mountain, Black Raven when they were still smaller, Rubens when they were still smaller, Society down in San Diego.
Oh, shit, yeah. Just the fucking
Old Schoolhouse.
Crazy early hop.
And we selected as a group.
Oh,
and then the great part about that first one is we all knew each other. And we all made IPA, and made it pretty well.
Right.
So we all had these, some people love certain attributes of Mosaic that I don't. But we were all pretty much on, we were like in sync.
You just named like some of the earliest heavy hitters when it came to IPA shit, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if I forgot somebody, but yeah, that's those were like, that's
if I was YCH, those are probably the breweries I would have called to be like, hey, we're doing some shit. You guys want to be involved?
Yeah, I mean, and finally letting us like pool our numbers so we can hit and so make those selections.
Yeah.
So now as people have gotten bigger, they've got their own selections, but like they were nice enough to allow me to. I'm with I select with Everybody's out in White Salmon.
Oh, nice. We just talked about it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Actually.
Yeah. Me and Dave are very very in tune as to what we want of these hops, and so it's like it's become a good relationship.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then a few others will allow you to select, some won't, but you kind of go that route.
That's awesome. That's a good answer to my very abstract question. So just a bunch of people who don't totally know, but Mike and I actually get to work together, so I get to sell Mike's beer a lot. But I've visited the brewery many times, and we were like gushing earlier about, like you have kind of this school of thought for your IPAs, and then you kind of have this very technical, refined, delicate approach to delicate lagers. And your Vienna lager, just in terms of like beer memories, is like one that stands out to me a ton. So like the first time I went down to the Camas spot, and you guys were serving chips and dip, but it was like homemade chips that were made out of spent brewery grain.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was fucking awesome.
Wow, that's been a while.
And it was years ago now. But I was bringing whiskey to you guys to add to your fantastic whiskey selection. But yeah, I sat and had lunch.
Japanese whiskey, if I remember.
And it sure was. It was Japanese whiskey because Brendan's a fucking nerd. Both of you guys are huge whiskey nerds. But yeah, I like sat down and had lunch and like just this fucking light, delicate Vienna lager that was like it was already considered world class. I think you guys had already had some hardware for it, but that paired with like this chips and dip that was made out of like spent brewery grain was like so fucking good. And it's like this core beer memory that I have in this industry. I don't know. I'm just guessing about it. But yeah, like where does your proclivity for lagers come from? Like you guys are so well known for these other things.
Well, I guess, Gordon Biersch was a huge impact in my entire career. Sense. And then, I mean, really, brewers' beers are lagers.
Yep.
While you can hit IPA, and that's the grail, right? Holy grail. But like if you hit lager, that's the inside holy grail. Sure. That's the respect. And take that aside. Lager is what we drink.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The first thing I'm going for is not an IPA. I'm going to go for, our light lager, Wrath Premium, or I want to go for Helles or one of those beers first, at least first.
Yeah.
And so coming away from Fatheads, where we took, I was working on lager, but like Owen and I sat down before we opened up and said, all right, we're going to bang it out with IPA, but we really agreed that the we want to make lager.
Yeah.
We want to make world-class lager.
Nice.
And that matters. Like all the people that,
That you respect.
yeah, I mean, and I respect a lot of people, but like those are the ones like, Chuck and Nut and, and I'll tell you this.
Your favorite brewer's favorite brewer.
Yeah,
of, like,
right.
status.
Oh, it's
totally.
one of those.
Totally.
I'll tell you this. Quick short story. Anyone who knows Mari loves Mari. She's Mari.
Yeah.
Will's just quiet in the corner nodding, and but also like
We're excited for their episode.
So our distributor day one, Robbie Rhoda brought her in 8 months after we opened up.
Yeah.
And we were sending Vienna Lager in. And I said, hey, and Robbie's like, they really like this Vienna Lager they sent in. And, Mari pulls no punches. She is no bullshit. That's what I love about her. Kind of like that guy asked me a question, right? Like,
sure.
I've heard her tear some people apart to their face.
Dude, there are some
stories. I mean, she's being honest, but there is no like soft pet to it. She's
good scrub.
Oh, she's she can be a sledgehammer, but she's just being honest with you, right?
Totally.
And so she tastes the Vienna Lager, and she kind of sits back and she looks at it and she tastes it again and she goes, "This is what went into this batch went into GABF." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "This is going to walk across stage." And I went, "Well, I appreciate that, and not really knowing her that well as I do now, because she goes, 'This is going to walk across the stage.'" And I said, "Well, thank you." And she goes, "Oh no, you don't know me yet." She goes, "I don't say that." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, thanks. It's nice to know." They happened to be sitting right behind us in the row behind us at GABF. And
when it got called?
And it got called for bronze that year. It got silver the next year, but the bronze did it that year. And she's slapping me on the back. "I told you! I told you!" And wagging her finger at me. And so we were like, "All right, this is pretty awesome."
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. And the next year hit silver. And the next year hit silver, and they're like 3 rows ahead of us. And she's turning to me and she's like, just wagging her finger at me. And she's ultra competitive. So that's
totally.
That was one of those first things. That's when when they called and asked if we would do a collaboration with them. I was like, we're on to something here.
Yeah.
Some of those things.
Those guys don't do that with, anybody.
Not
ever.
a lot.
So
that's
a fucking badge.
We did a home and away too, and it was kind of fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Ultimate respect for those folks because they are, they lead the way.
Seriously. Yeah.
So
we gush a lot about those guys.
as you should. That Kolsch is.
Are we at Fuck Up Stories? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
What happened?
No, we're at Fuck Up Stories.
Which one?
Good answer.
Which one?
Yeah.
Well,
have you ever almost died?
I believe in CO2 poisoning.
Or have you almost
so
ever
like so not
accidentally picked
that
up a
bad.
Damn it, Mike.
Inside cut.
Fuck.
So okay, how about this? The morning I was flying out here to interview with the folks from Fatheads. The very first production batch of Hop Juju, which is like it's one of those double IPAs on the on Mount Rushmore.
Yep.
Matt is like, "Hey, we gotta get this dry hopped," and I'm like, we're getting on a plane in like an hour and a half. And he's like, "Well, we got to get this dry hopped." And so I'm on, we have one of those baskets that attaches to a forklift. So he takes me up there and I'm opening it and it's like, we're active fermentation. I mean, not active fermentation. We're at high Kreuzen.
Oh,
so this thing's humming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Matt, this is a bad idea, dude." And he's like, he goes, "We got to get it done." And I'm like, because the guys tomorrow can't get it done. Mm-hmm. So, it is, so we have this, hopper, that we attach with a clamp. And the first 22 pounds just goes right in. And the second 22, as I get it in, it stops. I'm like, "Oh, is it clogged?" And then I look at the top, and the top starts shaking.
Fuck.
And I leaned down, and I started screaming, vent off. And so we're pushing CO2, right?
Yeah.
We didn't need to because it was high kreuzen. He opens up both. He's running both. He goes, they're open. And at that point, boom, this geyser hit.
Fuck.
And till this day, last time I saw it, that's a stain on the ceiling above 100 barrel fermenter.
Yeah.
Where the wort hit, the beer hit, and it was coming down, but it was still coming.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling like the CO2 is hitting. I'm 20 feet in the air. And I'm like, and I'm trying to reach. I can't see where the cap is. And it's just, now the lip in the basket that I'm in, I can't see my feet. It's overflowing.
Oh, fuck, dude.
Oh yeah, it's coming. And so I blindly reached through this geyser and I found the top and the gasket and clamp, and I literally slammed it and did I did a beer called Lucky Lasso with the Westbound and Down guys because I did this story. I literally just threw it and it just wrapped around perfectly.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I clamped it down. And I'm starting to go, I'm wavering.
Because of the CO2 in your face.
So Matt lowers me down. And he's like, holy shit. And I look, I won't even say what I look like. I was just covered in yeast top to bottom, not little, thick. My pockets were full. I had a sweatshirt on. And as I'm walking away, I hear, and I'm realizing, I turn, and our bar manager, Janet, was standing there. She's like, holy shit. She goes, what's going on? I can't hear you. And she looks in my ear and starts pulling hot pellets out of my ear. I was completely just
holy
drenched.
Shit.
So that was and so I had to run home, shower, change, and still make the plane.
Oh my God, man.
That or the other one where it was at Grains of Wrath, and we dry hopped a double IPA, and it started coming quick. This is not high kreuzen, this is at the end, but we probably should have waited an extra day. And it's coming, and I'm like, oh shit! So I grabbed the cap, and I just jumped and laid on it, and it's now spraying sideways. It was 15 minutes. I couldn't feel my hands anymore.
It's like throwing yourself on the grenade
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna fall. I have a ladder. I don't have anything keeping me up. I'm laying there. My hands are completely have fallen asleep.
Yeah.
When this thing finally slowed down.
God damn it.
The oh shit moments. That's one. What's the other one I was talking about?
Almost died.
What's the other one I talked about? What was it? Oh man. But those are two that come to mind real quick. Oh shit!
Sean's in the corner.
We've all seen those. We've all seen those videos of geysers and just losing, barrels of beer.
That's our favorite theme of fuck up stories.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Or even better. Okay. I'm chasing cats. My brain doesn't work real well. So it was fresh hop season, and we had 2 beers to dry hop, and then I put the wrong hops in front of the tanks and went up and dry hopped the wrong beers. With the opposite.
Yeah.
And we had one supposed to be all mosaic beer, Grave Dancer, which is one of our core beers. We did that.
Yeah.
And I dry hopped that with Citra, Simcoe, and something else. And so we can't call it Grave Dancer. So my staff said, well, we'll just call it Scatterbrained, which is legit because
awesome. Pretty on brand.
Oh, this is not not a joke. I'm everywhere. So. That's the other one.
All right, Grit and Grainers. Email us at cheers@gritandgrainpodcast.com with your comments, opinions, and suggested names for Grains of Wrath founder Mike's old school IPA series for nursing homes, such as Grains of Gramps, Febreze out the jams, never mind the Bullocks. Here's my favorite blanket. Back in Black for the 3rd funeral this week, and Bad Brains. We read and drink everything. Bad Brains. We read and drink everything we receive, and we try to respond as quickly as we can. If not online, then on air. You can subscribe to Grit and Grain on Amazon, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And please leave us a review. Also, check us out on Channel 253, Doug, and gritandgrainpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for episode notes, beer news, and to be seen on the beer scene, which is the raison d'etre of every beer scenester. Even seemingly as it seems, there comes a day when the most diehard beer scenester becomes unseen, thus forcing him or her to depart the scene to seek new scenes. According to psychologists, these terrifying interludes of scene deprivation can seem fatal to your average beer scenester, for whom being unseen on the scene is equivalent to the state of non-existence, soul death, or worst of all, being seen in the scene of 1985's movie Beer.
What's happening?
Well, beer scenesters, take heart. Grit and Grain sees you.
Ron's having a stroke.
So create a new old scene without having suffered the torments of being seen by other scenesters. If this podcast is not what you expected, please alter your expectations. No one else but Mike can have the balls to brew 2 of his IPAs, James Westfall and Dr. Kenneth Noisewater. Or maybe the other might be Brian Fantana. No such thing as a bad time to visit Tacoma. No such thing as too much barley wine. Tune in next Friday for more sweet chatter. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm out of breath. That's well done. I would have passed out halfway through.
Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
Good up.
This is channel 253.